Steve Bowers welcoming you to Dialogue here at E+ TV6, a very special focus on a art exhibit. This is downtown Jackson in the City Hall that was dedicated October the 2nd of 2023. Here to talk about how it came about and then to meet and hear from the person that created all of this. And so we'll be talking to Elaine Christian and to Lendon Noe. Starting with Elaine, so good to see you.
Good to see you.
And
Thank
Elaine,
you,
of course, headed up the bicentennial celebration that lasted from 2021 to 2022 and obviously continues.
Obviously, continuing. It's really been an amazing
thing. It's going to have outgrowth. How did this project that's at City Hall come about?
You know, Steve, it'll take me a second to kind of explain, but it's all good. The bicentennial was all about events for that first year, and we kicked it off and we recognized different themes that we had put together and had programs, and then finished it with a bang on the August and celebrated the city's bicentennial, had the Commodores come in, had a parade. And then our sponsors and support from the community has just been overwhelming. Not only with the volunteers, we had over 500 volunteers that participated and over 150 events during that time frame. But we had some money that these sponsors and this community put into this project, and our board just started brainstorming, and we started focusing on what we call legacy projects. And so a couple of examples of legacy projects is the time capsule. You know, that's going to last for 50 years. You know, we did the milestones, a history book. We've got that introduced in classrooms and in the community. And it's so cool. The Montessori school is doing projects out of that book still. And then it moved on into the concept of these art projects. Okay.
And the art projects, there's one at City Hall and one at the county courthouse. So let's talk about the City Hall and how did you pick the artist?
Well, we have an art committee, subcommittee from our board. We did a request for proposal. Wanda Stanfield was really helpful with that process. Vicki Lake was the chair of that committee, had a wonderful committee. And we were looking at that point in time only for a project at the county courthouse. Okay. And we wound up with a good response and had the committee evaluated, came down to the projects and started really looking at the differences, the two themes and types of medium and types of art, they complement each other so well. We went back to the drawing board and we thought, you know what, we can do one in City Hall and one in the courthouse. Okay. And wow, do we have the most amazing exhibit in City Hall.
Okay. So Linda was selected by the committee?
Yes, absolutely.
Off that proposal.
Absolutely.
But now, we'll get into this with her, but it evolved a lot from I think, what you started out with. Or right,
well, it did, and anyone who knows Lendon will not have any trouble understanding how it evolved. She has lived in this community, dedicated to this community, and has such a keen eye and instinct and feel for this community. So we had initially thought she might do 3 panels, and she's using the medium of expressionism with mixed media. She brought a little notebook to our committee meeting, and she had these themes that she was going to explore, and some sketches and some thoughts, and wanted to incorporate poetry, and we'll talk about that in a moment. And we were just overwhelmed. Okay. And so this project, the project for the county courthouse, and then of course the Bicentennial Park. Right. So we've got those 3 projects that are the remaining legacy projects to be completed, and balls are still in the air for this project.
We'll get the first-hand story from her, but apparently this thing started evolving in her mind, right?
It did, and I think we instinctually we knew that because we know Lendon and we know her work and we know her love for this community. So we weren't surprised that it did start evolving. But my gosh, we are blown away by what she developed.
So it goes from sketches to this to all this, and you say poetry worked its way in there.
Oh, absolutely. James Cherry, of course, our poet laureate for Madison County, is featured in the exhibition guide, and some of his thoughts and writing have really impacted Lendon's direction. And so excited to offer this project to the community. You know, we see this as celebration of our 200 years, but also, you know, a gift that will take us into the future. Mm-hmm. And so with her exhibit and her themes and focusing on the community, you know, we want students to come, look at these works and kind of have an understanding. But in essence, it's all about the youth and moving forward, and we want this to be a lasting program and exhibit for this community.
Yeah. We've talked about how quickly things change and how we lose memory of all this, and so that kind of context is important. We've gone through a 200th year of the First Presbyterian Church. I thought, well, if you brought somebody from the First Presbyterian Church back to Jackson from 100 years ago, they'd want to go to Main and Church Street and see how the church looked today.
Yes.
And the Cadence Bank is there. And so I mean, and you'd say, well, the church is at the Pigford Estate, and say, well, that's not even in Jackson. That's north of Hicksville, on the Trenton Road, and it would be to orient, right? And so that's the value, I think, a lot of this.
I
is
think
that
so too.
somebody can walk in, and so it's like, okay, now I have some context on the city and this community.
Well, I did want to mention, and you were involved from the very beginning, in our history committee with the leadership of Harbert Alexander and Dean English and Billy King, who we have lost.
All three
but
of them.
they were so vitally involved in setting the direction of establishing what's important in Jackson and being able to celebrate our past. And so it's those volunteers and the many volunteers that have been involved and the sponsors. We can't thank our legacy sponsors enough. The City of Jackson, Madison County, Jackson, West Tennessee Healthcare, and Jackson Energy Authority.
So the city, county governments, Jackson Energy Authority, and West Tennessee Healthcare.
And then many, many others from the community, businesses and individuals. And we couldn't have done this project without their support.
Well, it's got to be satisfying to look at all this now and go, because as you say, this is something that was not just celebrated, but it's left these legacies that will continue to reverberate in this community, hopefully as long as Jackson, Tennessee is here.
Yes, no, I think that was the idea. And we had hoped to do something, but we didn't dream that we would be able to take it to this level. And so kudos to Lendon and her imagination. We are so thrilled about this exhibit. And it's just going to make a difference in our community for the next 50 years or longer.
Yeah.
It's a treasure. It's truly a treasure.
Well, it was the ability, I think, to capture this moment or this opportunity and to produce something that lasts.
You know, that's what she's entitled her exhibit, In This Moment. And that's what the Bicentennial did.
All right, well, that's exactly. So good to see you.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Steve.
all. And congratulations on the success of this, Lane.
And we hope people will come out and want to see it and tell their friends and bring their children and their grandchildren.
From now on.
Yes, from now on.
As long as this city is, we assume. And if we get a new city hall sometime, we trust that they're going to move all this stuff with it.
Absolutely. And thanks to Scott Conger, because we had to go back and say, oh, by the way, Scott.
By the way, not just 3 panels.
That's not 3 panels. So.
We're about to meet the person that's responsible for this. Elaine's responsible for getting all this started, and the artist, Lendon Noe, who obviously lives in a different world than the rest of us, right?
And we're so thankful for that.
That she does, and we've got that. That's coming up as we continue this dialogue here at E+ TVC.
Hey, let's check out this park. Oh, wow, that's really cool. To find a great local park or forest near you, go to discovertheforest.org.
What this place needs is better graduation rates.
What this place needs is less childhood obesity.
What this place needs is free help with taxes.
What this place needs is healthy breakfasts.
What this place needs is fitness programs for kids.
What this place needs is early readers.
What this place needs is mentors for teens.
What this place needs is people to join us. What this place needs is you. To donate or volunteer, go to unitedway.org.
Steve Bowers, welcome you back to Dialogue here at E+ TV6 as we continue to focus on the art exhibit that is at City Hall, on how it came about. Our thanks to Elaine Christian for being with us to set the stage for this as an outgrowth of the bicentennial celebration from 2021 and 2022 that obviously continues today in this city. Now, this is the artist that's responsible for this, and this is Lendon Noe. How are you?
I'm fine,
Right.
Steve.
I'm going to try to understand how the artist's mind works before we get out of here.
Oh, I don't know that that's possible.
Okay, well, that may be what it takes, right?
It's an enigma.
What prompted you to apply for this commission?
Well, I'd actually been interested in my own ancestry, and I was doing artwork around my own ancestry, and I saw the proposal. And at first I thought that wasn't necessarily for me.
Okay.
And then I realized the kind of work I'd been doing for quite a few months, and I thought, you know, yeah, that's exactly the kind of thing you'd be interested in. So I started working on a sketchbook and making a proposal and thinking about what kind of thing I would like to do, and submitted a proposal, and the rest, they say, is history.
All right, so the proposal is one thing. What we
Yeah.
see now is something completely different. So what happened?
Well, that tends to happen.
Okay.
I think it actually tends to happen to most of us, but so here's kind of what happened to me. Caleb, I knew, the artist who's doing the work for the courthouse.
Okay.
So Caleb, I knew, was touching on all the most famous instances in Jackson, and the famous events and the famous people, and doing a great job, beautiful composition I've seen, and so on. So I thought that my interest lay in what the ordinary Jackson experience was for the ordinary person. What was it like? My parents came here in something like '47 and built a little ranch house on Arlington, which is where my brother and I grew up. And so I thought I knew Jackson. A few decades ago, I'd done an exhibit for the Jewish Studies Center at Lambeth that was the Jewish history of Jackson.
Okay.
And I learned an awful lot in that project that was fascinating. So I thought I knew Jackson inside and out, but boy, when I got into this project, there's a lot that I've learned. I want to say that the Tennessee room at the library, Jack Wood and Evelyn Keel, I couldn't have done this project without those folks. That place is, and those people are a treasure for Jackson. But anyway, so I started thinking about the different aspects of Jackson culture, for instance, higher education, the impact of religion on Jackson, the railroads, the cotton, when Jackson got electricity. That's always fascinated me, thinking about what life was like before electricity and life was like after electricity. I just think about trying to get your laundry done before electricity. I mean, seriously, it was tremendous, laborious activity just to keep a house going.
Full-time somebody to run a household.
Absolutely, and the excitement that electricity must have engendered. And I know that originally some people were kind of conflicted about whether this was a good thing or not, but I don't think it took long before people realized what a help it could be.
So you discover all this other stuff. Just like when you got involved with the Jewish Community Project, it's opening up a whole segment that's here, but until you focus on it, it's like, wow.
Exactly.
So what all did you find when you got into this?
The problem is, for somebody like me putting together a exhibit of this kind, is what are you going to include and what do you have to leave out? Because you run out of space and you run out of time, and you just have to begin to make those decisions. So
this amazing thing, this growth from 3 panels to what we have now, that's a reduction.
Well, I'm a mixed media artist, which means that I use a lot of different media. Like the primary media is oil painting. But then when you work with mixed media, you can start to collage elements in. There's so many wonderful photographs that people like Mitch Carter have made throughout his history in Jackson, and others, many others as well. So I've been able to incorporate a lot of photography, a lot of text. We have some fabulous authors all throughout writing about Jackson, and in today's culture, we have our Jackson home that I've benefited from tremendously. Writers like Gabe Hart, been inspirational, Courtney Searcy. But anyway, so my problem was, okay, what do I incorporate and what do I leave out? And I know there are going to be a lot of Jackson folks that are a little disappointed in what I haven't been able to include. But that's just the nature of the beast. So I started listing the areas like athletics and K through 12 schooling and religion and the arts and higher education. And I started trying to think about how I could deal with this. And to tell you the truth, I've suddenly forgotten the number I settled on. But that's the way the exhibit hopefully flows through the early settlers to the impact of cotton, the creation of the Bemis community, which is so fascinating. I mean, we start with a paragraph out of one of Harbert Alexander's books that begins with, I probably can't quote it verbatim, but it's something like, it's hard to believe now that there was a time when Jackson was actually a port city because of the Forked Deer. But now the Forked Deer seems so small to us that we have a hard time imagining that. But there was a time when we were really a port city. And I mean, then I discovered little fascinating, fun things like the Native American name for the Forked Deer was the Okina. Well, of course, we now have this development that's called the Okina development. And I wondered how many people who live there actually know where the name came from. But so that's the way I develop these things. And one thing leads to another. I started asking myself early in history, our primary development was around the railroads, around agriculture first, and then around the railroads. Well, I knew Caleb was dealing with our claim to fame, you know, Casey Jones and the early trains. So I chose to focus on a train from 1936 called the Rebel that I.B. Tigret brought to Jackson. I've done a big canvas built around that with a complementary canvas that has to do with the men that actually laid the rails. I started thinking about, okay, we've talked a lot about the big deal people that brought the railroad here, and Caleb's covering that, and I cover that in a bit, but there would have been no railroad without the men that laid those rails, and what a job that must have been. But at that time, I mean, we could get on the train and go to Chicago or go to Miami, and once again, it turned Jackson into a major hub city. So then I started thinking about, well, now we are primarily built around a healthcare facility. It's one of our biggest employers, if not the biggest employer.
Hang on to that thought for a moment.
Sure.
Take this break. We'll be right back. We're going to pick up right here. Lendon Noe is with us, and she's responsible for the content of this exhibit at City Hall here in Jackson. If you haven't seen it, you need to do so. We'll be back with more dialogue here at E+ TV 6.
What this place needs is better graduation rates.
What this place needs is less childhood obesity.
What this place needs is free help with taxes.
What this place needs is healthy breakfast.
What this place needs is fitness programs for kids.
What this place needs is early readers.
What this place needs is mentors for teens.
What this place needs is people to join us. What this place needs is you. To donate or volunteer, go to unitedway.org.
When I was your age, I was just like you, fascinated by stars. But now I get to search for life in the universe. And who knows, maybe life is looking for us too.
So we're like aliens to them?
Yeah. Does anyone want to be a scientist now?
I do.
Awesome. We need more girls in STEM.
Maybe we can find aliens.
Welcome back to Dialogue at E+ TV 6 as we continue our conversation with Lendon Noe, the artist responsible for the exhibit on Jackson's history, coming out of the bicentennial celebration that Elaine Christian headed up for a full year from 2021 to 2022 here. And we're doing this program in 2023, and the exhibit is just a stunning reflection of our history, and she's responsible. You talked about the transportation in a sense that this was a port city. I remember Billy King took me to Estonali, which was the port on the Hatchie River, of which there's absolutely nothing left, but it was like, and it was to try to visualize that's where all the commerce came up, and and during the war, which was a key transition point and all this other stuff. Same thing with Jackson. You think about Jackson, you don't think about the Forkadere and a port.
I know.
Because then the railroads came along, and of course the interstate came. But then you talked about the health community, which totally transformed this city.
Right, and has been a major employer, and I was fascinated by actually found an image. By the way, I need to make mention of Emma Inman Williams, who again, I could not have done this without her research, her books, her earlier ones, and her pictorial history. And by the way, she was also my history teacher.
Oh, is that right?
At Jackson High School in 1967, I think. I just gave away how old I am, but that's okay too. Anyway, so yes, healthcare has been huge. But what I was going to tell you about is I found a photograph of the earliest ambulance in Jackson, Tennessee. It was entirely made of wood and was mule drawn and was owned by Griffin Funeral Home, which at the time was Umflett and Griffin, and that's on the side of it. So I've done a canvas where the earliest ambulance is there, but then the Kirkland Cancer Center is there as well, hopefully trying to span the history from the beginning to now. And that Kirkland Cancer Center, of course, is remarkable, and we're just so grateful to have it. Speaking of grateful, I do need to say how grateful I am to have had this project, to have been allowed this opportunity.
When you get into this, Lendon, all right, and like I said, you start out with a sketchbook and 3 panels or whatever, and then it starts
and then
taking,
grows.
It grows. And then, like I said, it has to come to an end at some point. How do you start then? I mean, how much time? Is it planned from the very, did you see the whole thing, or did even then when you started trying to put it together, did it start taking off a life of its own? Or here's how I can complement that, or put a photograph here, or a poem here, or a statement here?
I had an idea from the beginning, but I've done this kind of work for 50 years or more, and so I'm familiar with the way it tends to mushroom and grow, and I just sort of go with that. And there are elements to the exhibit that people probably think are wild and crazy. I mean, I've done these accordion fold books that actually hang vertically, but each one is a collaged group of photographs and text that enable me to say more about the history of a different aspect of Jackson than I could in just one oil painting. And
so the multimedia is what makes it work.
Yeah, and you begin to learn things, and you find things, and you collect things. I had the most fun with, I started looking for Jackson postcards, real postcards that were really mailed throughout Jackson's history, and I was looking on eBay for them, and I started buying a few.
I've done the same thing.
Yeah, well, after having bought a few, this gentleman contacted me and said, "Are you interested in Jackson postcards?" I said, "Absolutely." We met at Turntable Coffee, and he gave me this wonderful collection of like 35 Jackson postcards. that a great many are now in the exhibit. They're so evocative, not only for the image that's on the side. For instance, there's a collection of Lancaster Park. Well, I was talking to a young man yesterday who'd never heard of Lancaster Park, didn't know the stories of Lancaster Park. Then there's a collection of Highland Park. He didn't realize that we had a roller coaster at one time in Highland Park, a baseball park, that Campbell Lake was much bigger than it is today, those kinds of things. But then the text on the other side brings the exhibit to life, and that's why I was also wanting to use the poetry. So I was painting these everyday, you know, average Jackson humans, but I wanted somehow to bring their voice alive. Well, Deborah Taylor wrote a beautiful poem that to me just really captured what I was trying to do with this exhibit, and she titled it "In This Moment." And I realized that if with her permission, I could use the poem, but also use the title for the whole exhibit, and she gracefully agreed. And then I realized that James Cherry would have a way to voice a part of the community as well. And so I asked him if he would be willing to contribute some, and oh my goodness, his poetry is so powerful. And so I actually have these poems on the walls and part of the exhibit. And some other quotes. I've always enjoyed combining text with images, and I've always, in all of my previous work, bodies of work, I've paired my work with poets, often, you know, famous poets from the past like Emily Dickinson and so on. My work, as far as I'm concerned, has been nothing but enhanced and brought to life by the text, and text from people like Harbert Alexander and D. English and so many others that I'm probably going to forget right now. But
so when you back up, you know,
yes,
like in the creation, God looked at everything and said, "This is good." Right? Okay. So,
well, you're deadline driven.
Okay. Jordan Tanquil, I asked him, so what is the inspiration for symphonies? And he said, commissions and deadlines.
that sums it up really well.
Okay. Well,
really
it came together perfectly. And
I have to say I'm really proud of the exhibit and what we were able to do in the catalog. I need to mention that B3 Creative and Lizzie LaFont especially was instrumental in helping me put the catalog together, or I should say I was helping her to put the catalog together. But we were able to do some things in the catalog that we weren't able to put on the walls. Okay. I'm just so grateful to the Elaine and the whole committee, to allowing me to explore all these different possibilities.
Well, they made the perfect choice.
Oh,
real
you're
honor
very
to be
kind.
with you. Appreciate this time.
Thank you so much.
Linda's work she has other work. When you go to the Legends of Tennessee Music Museum at the Carnegie, many of those paintings, you're responsible for those as well, some of the legendary figures in rockabilly music. And so it's a real pleasure to see you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks to you for being with us. Thanks to Elaine Christian. Be sure to visit this exhibit and tell people about this exhibit in this moment at the Jackson City Hall. The work of Lendon Noe and the Bicentennial Committee and effort in this city. It's a legacy that continues. Thanks for being with us here at E+ TV 6. And this is the place where the dialogue continues.